One of my off-air TV boxes has decided that it no longer wants to work. It was working the other day, went to watch something, it's down, completely dead. Let's see what happened this time. Up next, we're going to look at a device that I just love to hate, and that's these ATSC cable boxes. I use these to receive off-air signals and feed them through the house on agile modulators, and well, they're left running basically 24 hours a day, and this is one that has now gone down yet again. It has gone completely dead. No standby power, no nothing. So we'll just open this up and see whether it's savable or not. The power supply has been rebuilt on this thing already a few times, but they just don't tend to last very long. Seems like every couple of years I've got to go through and fix them yet again. So let's pop the top off this and see what's happened to it this time. This one was last serviced probably 4 or 5 years ago. Maybe a little longer, I forget. I kind of ignore these devices because they just kind of sit in the closet and just receive an off-air signal and feed it through my system. You might wonder, why am I feeding through my system? Well, I do have digital tuners in some of the TVs, not all of them, but some of them. But I run multiple antennas, so there are some stations that are a transmitter that's the opposite direction from where the main antenna points. So I've always had a second antenna. I've got that new antenna on there now, but I had one there before. And I use, because they're just standard definition channels that are on that station. It's not an HD, channel or HD programs. It's not an HD channel. There's 7 channels in the mux. One of them is HD, and the rest of them are just standard definition. So because it's a standard definition, I just don't need to have a to watch it in HD. I can just use an analog modulator and feed it out at the same time, and then I can tune it in on all the televisions in the house, even ones that are analog only. Okay, so this is the power supply. As they say, capacitors have been replaced in this thing several times. I don't know what's gone wrong with it this time. It's not powering up. I'm assuming that it is the power supply, but it could be just about anything. So let's plug it in, see if I'm getting any voltage coming off the power supply. These plugs are also not very good on this unit here. Yeah, I've got nothing. Of course, there should be a red light. If this thing was in standby, there'd be a red light. We can check our voltage here. There's nothing. There's no 12 volt supply, and there's no 7 volt supply. So there's a good chance that it's not even booting up. It could be one of these caps in the AC side that's gone bad, because none of the voltages are there. You would expect to see, if it was one of these secondary caps that was bad, I would expect to see something, but I see nothing. So I have to think maybe something's gone bad on the primary side this time, and that's why it's not starting. So let's pull the power supply and check it. The connector on this is just terrible. I don't want to unplug it if I don't have to, because I know that over the years they've gotten really brittle, the plugs. One of the other boxes I've got, I actually had to solder all the wires down because the power supply itself, the plug went bad from unplugging it a couple times. Alright, so as you can see, this board has been repaired more than once. 2008 is when this power supply was designed. First things first, let's see whether it's got, well, let's check the fuse first of all, make sure that the fuse isn't blown. Fuse is not blown, so it can't be something catastrophic, I don't think. It might be this little bootstrap capacitor here that's gone bad, or it could be the main filter. Likely the bootstrap. It could be the MOSFET too. This MOSFET IC could have failed. I had one of those blow up on me on a different brand. I have an Apex that I use as well, and it went kaboom. There was a hole blown into the IC here on that one, but it's now up and running and back in service. Now I kind of suspect that one of these little caps is probably bad. I'm just going to check it and see. We'll look at the ESR. The fact that there's no voltage whatsoever, indicating that the power supply is not even attempting to start, it's more than likely one of these caps. Usually it's a small one like this one right down here. Just check this out and see that it's measuring, well, 1.4. That should be okay. What about this one here? That one's measuring open. Okay, let's just remove it. Let's remove this main filter and see whether that's the one that's at fault. My solder braid. So this is a 33 microfarad at 400 volts. This is the main primary filter. So obviously if this one were to go open, the power supply is not going to operate. Too much solder on the end of that tip. The problem when the tip is the size that this thing is, it'll hold a lot of solder. Okay, let's just check this one out. We'll measure its capacity first with the capacitance meter. And 33 at 400 volts. Make sure I got the right probes. So it's measuring. It's getting there. 29. 27. So it's measuring a little bit low. Check the ESR on this one. ESR showing completely open. So this cap is dried up. Let's find a replacement 33 at 400 volts. Should have an old power supply I can steal one of those out of. Okay, I got another one here. If we measure this one with the capacitance meter, this was a 47. It's measuring up at 42.7. But more importantly, the ESR on this one here is 0.62, whereas the one that's dead is open completely. So let's just swap this cap out and see whether this little tuner will boot up again. I'm sure that this is probably all that's wrong with this one. Incidentally, if you're wondering what's going on in the background, I've just got some movies playing on the old Laserdisc. I'm just continuing to test it because I want to make sure that everything's good on it. I've put it all back together, but it's still under test. And right now I have Young Frankenstein playing on my other TV, just for testing purposes. So Okay, new capacitor is in place. We'll solder this one down and try powering this unit up. We'll see if it fixes it. Good chance that that's all that's wrong with it is the main filter in this case dried up. Usually it's the caps in the secondary. I tell you sure appreciate a good soldering iron, one that can actually transfer the heat properly to what you're working on. Okay, that's got. Connect this one up and we'll hook it up and see if I've got any. Got the antenna here. This is going to the antenna on the roof. And the video out. Going to my monitor for now. Alright, let's apply power and see whether this thing lights up. So far, nothing. Maybe more than that cap. Okay, I've got my DC voltage charging up. I've got it unplugged now, so I'm just watching it discharge. But we have no start. Now this cap usually is the one that gives it a kick, so that one might also be bad, even though I didn't change it out. It measured okay in circuit, but it also could be the MOSFET may have failed. With that cap going open like that, there would have been excessive ripple, and that excessive ripple could have damaged the MOSFET itself. So I'm just looking to see where it goes. So we have our high voltage. I'm just going to discharge that cap, whatever remains in it. So what happens on this is the high voltage DC is going through the transformer, then it comes up and ends up on I guess the drain for the drive. The oscillator is set up over here with the other capacitor, and it should start self-oscillating as soon as it's got power. Now, say the other little cap over here can certainly cause things to not work. We'll just pop this cap out and check it and replace it and see whether we get anything different that's happening. So there's that cap out, because this is the startup cap. This can certainly cause it to not start. And basically what that capacitor's job is to provide a kick to get things going. I'm not liking this big honking soldering tip on this iron, because it holds so much solder that to use up half a roll of solder wick just trying to open up a couple of pads here. I'll have to get a smaller tip. I have a smaller tip, but I have the one I've got is a really fine one. I'd like to go back to like a ETA. Okay, let's check this cap again. We'll see what this one measures up at. So it's probably open to 22. Okay, 22 at 50 volts. How's my ESR? If this one's okay, it could very well be the IC, the MOSFET. .3. probably okay. 22 at 50 volts. So 22 at 50 volts. This is 1.5 is what would be considered normal, and I got 1.3. So this capacitor is probably okay. .5, so it's within spec. Okay, we got a couple of startup resistors in here as well. There are two little surface mounted resistors here. They're half a mega ohm each. They supply B plus, 160 volts, down to this other cap in the startup circuit. So these should be about a half a mega ohm, and they're in series, so 1 mega ohm between the two of them. I got 2.1 mega ohms on one. I got 2.1 on the other. For 4 mega ohms between the two of them. A little bit high. See if we can find a 1 meg resistor. We'll put a 1 meg resistor across here from this cap, the positive of this other cap, to the B plus. See whether that will start this up. So I'll clip out these surface mount, and we'll just put this one on the bottom of the board in place of it. 1 meg ohm resistor. Okay, let's try it again. I've got the power supply mounted again into the unit, and we'll see if anything happens now. Okay, I got a red light on it now after changing out that resistor. Will this thing boot up and give me a picture? I've got it booting up, and I don't have the picture yet. Oh yes, yes I do. I have a picture. This is NHK World Service that I'm getting. Yeah, sumo wrestling. Yeah, wonderful. Everybody wants to see that. This is.
They are obviously more mobile.
So these are the channels that I get off of this unit. Now that I fixed that power supply.
Nativity Square marks the
This is a
center
PBS
of
channel.
the Church of the Nativity.
That channel's not on the air just yet. I'm waiting to see what shows up. Hopefully there's going to be something good to watch on that channel, because the other ones on that box are no good.
Morning. I prefer to let my statement of
Newsmax, SBN.
And even though Hitler at the time
Singing.
as a handheld or an overhead.
These are all the stations I can get off this little box.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are about to witness for the first time on any screen
involving a center flash mount.
And then we're done.
And
How would you like to dance?
Oh, sugar.
with Nicorette.
Only two things are forever. Love.
That's silly.
Prototype android lore, also constructed by Noonians.
Looking good.
Oh, can't have that on.
That's a pretty.
That'll get me shut down right away. So this one's up and running. Excellent.
For
So
example,
just a blown capacitor in the power supply, the primary of the power supply. But when this main filter went bad,
Come on, coaches at girls basketball team.
this one here, the one open,
His stars
I guess it
are both
overloaded
Christians
those
and Muslims,
resistors
and
because
we're rooting
say
them on.
that those 2.5 mega ohm resistors coming up at around 2.2 mega ohms wasn't starting the IC, so put a 1 mega ohm resistor across there and
Kamal's place to
away
meet
we
his
go.
family
Start it
and
up.
enjoy
So that fixes this one.
typical in Palestinian
Now I can
culture
put this
that
one
many
back in
generations
service.
live under
Thanks
the
for
same
watching.
roof.